I'm Julie Lyles Carr, and this is the Modern Motherhood Podcast, and I am so excited and blown away by the guest I get to share with you today. Our conversation about understanding the people that put energy into our lives and the people who can frankly leave us drained. Well, it is so helpful, so chock full of wisdom that I can't wait for you to hear it. You might even want to get out paper and a pencil and take down some notes. And for me, getting to interview Dr. John Townsend, I've got to admit, it is a huge fangirl moment. He's the author of the perennial bestseller Boundaries and the whole Boundaries series, and his newest book is going to be just as impactful. Get ready to take tons of notes and to rewind and listen to portions of this wisdom-packed conversation with Dr. John Townsend. Dr. John Townsend, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Julie.
You have done so much work in the relationship space, and you've got this new book coming out that I am super excited about called People Fuel. Now, I'm a mom of 8. I'm surrounded by people all the time. I'm in ministry. I've got people around me all the time. It took me a long time.
Gosh, I'm getting drained listening to you right now. Oh, gosh, I got to help.
I know. See, I need you. This interview is more for me than it is for the listeners. I know our listeners are going to be so blessed and energized by what you have to say. And when you're in people's situations, sometimes you don't even really distinguish between those things that are good for you and those things that are not. Now, I love what you have to say. You know, we are probably becoming better as a generation about understanding we've got to have sleep and exercise, and we've got to work on our spiritual lives, and we want work that's passionate and life-giving to us. But we are sometimes really challenged, even in all the things that we know about self-care, to distinguish well about the relationships that are life-giving to us. So unpack for us what life-giving, powerful relationships look like.
Absolutely. And like you said, it's a huge need, especially for a mom, Julie, because your function is to be a life support system for lots of little kids and people you're ministering to and spouses. So, you know, what happens? Because you get drained so easily. So the best way to understand the model that I wrote the new book on, People Fuel, is think about our bionutrients. And we're all kind of into health now. And so we all take our supplements. And so what are some of the bionutrients we need? Well, these are very, very well known. For example, we need a certain amount of calcium. And if you don't get calcium in your system, you get osteoporosis. If you don't have enough iron in your system, then your blood doesn't have enough iron. You get a thing called anemia. Well, the model of the book is that as well as not only bionutrients, God created us with a need for relational nutrients, same kind of metaphor, which are these elements we need in our conversations with each other. And it can be a text, it could be a Starbucks, it could be a lunch, it could be a whole dinner, it could be a phone call. But my brain's supposed to give your brain something good to prosper and have energy, and your brain's supposed to give mine back. Now, should I kind of go into what the 4 areas of the nutrients are?
Absolutely. I love this concept that Dr. John Townsend has, these 4 quadrants about how we can really understand those nutrients that we want to bring to relationships, and also be on the lookout to make sure we're receiving those kind of nutrients from the relationships in our lives. So unpack those 4 quadrants for us. In
fact, moms need to go the other way because, you know, Barbie and I raised kids too. The first impulse of a mom is giving, because you kind of have to because they're little, but you got to remember, you can't forget yourself, or you don't have to give to them what they need because you don't have it. So you got to be a little bit selfish about this.
Right.
Okay. Here's the 4 quadrants of relational nutrients. The first one is be present. Sometimes we just need somebody to listen to us and just be there when we kind of vent or we don't accept ourselves, just to say, hey, I'm with you. I get it. I understand. We just don't need advice or 3 steps into getting our life together. Just kind of, can you hear me? And being present is so life-giving, because what we really feel is, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. You get where I am, and that changes everything. The second quadrant is convey the good. Sometimes we just need somebody to see something good in us because we feel like I'm not perfect. I'm letting everybody down. People need me and I'm not there for them, and I'm always late and I'm always behind. We need somebody to say, I really respect you, or I want to affirm something good I saw in you today. Or I want to tell you something to encourage you because I don't think you're encouraging yourself right now, and I'd like to do that. So convey the good is the second kind of nutrient quadrant. The third one is deliver reality, provide reality. Sometimes we just need somebody to say, here's another way to look at this. You know, I'm as a psychologist, and I study people and successful people and how they got that way. The power of why is very important. Sometimes we need people to say, let's talk about why that happened with your child. Why that happened at church? Why that happened in your job? Why that happened in your marriage? And we get information and data and wisdom and perspective. That's really what providing reality is. And then the fourth one is call to action. Now, what do I mean by call to action? Well, at the end of the day, motherhood and success in being a parent and a person is about behavior. We got to behave the right ways to get kids loved and nurtured and, grown up and structured. And so call to action, sometimes we need somebody to say, let me give you some advice. Probably it's better to say, I need advice. It's not really good that people give us advice that we don't ask for. That's kind of a
need to ask, yeah.
But sometimes people have steps for us or a structure. Hey, read this book, have this tough conversation, go to bed earlier. So that's the fourth one. So when you put together being present and then the needs to be, people convey good things to us, the need for insight and wisdom and the need for the challenge of action, it's our job to say when we have a Starbucks conversation or text with somebody, I kind of need this from you right now because they can't read our minds. And then life goes on. And I promise you, everybody needs all of these every week. Right. Some form or substance of all these every week. And then we've got the energy we need. We feel not alone. We feel encouraged. We can go battle the giants we got to battle.
Talk to me, Dr. John, about when we get too much in one quadrant with some of our friends. So, for example, I have friends who are beautifully empathetic and kind. And if I only live there with them in quadrant one, with them saying, yes, I agree with you. That's terrible. That was awful.
Tell me more about
your feelings. Tell me more. I'm not really going to progress as a human. And actually what I'm going to find is that I'm even more drained because they're being kind, they're being sweet, but that isn't the only nutrient that I need, to your metaphor. So how can I do a good self-check and make sure that I'm leaving myself open with trusted people to also give me those places where somebody is delivering reality to me or is challenging me in a call to action?
And everybody asks that question. Number one, you have to educate the safe people in your life because they don't know. The empaths, they can be there with you, but they don't know right now. I need 3 steps. I mean, should I work out? Should I take supplements? What should I do?
Right.
And so you got to tell them, I love our relationship and I always want to be there for you. Today, I probably do need to know that you get it, but I need some action plans too. And our friends will go, I had no idea. I just thought you wanted me to empathize. No, that was nice. That 45 minutes felt really good.
Yeah.
But today, I just need to make some steps because I'm feeling stuck. And when we educate our safe people, and you can't educate crazy people, they're not educable, but safe people that love you, is what I call in the book our life team. They'll go, oh, now I've got clarity. I didn't know you needed that. It's our job to let them know. We're only as good as when we tell people what we really need.
Absolutely. And I do think sometimes, and I don't necessarily like distinguishing too heavily between genders on these kind of things, but I do think sometimes women can bring an expectation that somebody should be able to read their mind and meet those needs without having to verbalize those. And hey, you know what, moms? It does not reduce the level of somebody's connection to you or the desire they have to be in relationship with you if you need to give them a little bit of a roadmap on what you're looking for. That does not diminish at all, to me, the relationship. So I love that you bring up that we do have to educate those around us about what nutrients we're needing.
And I think the way you do this in a kind way, Julie, is you put yourself up there first and say, by the way, I want to be a great friend to you too. And so anytime you need something specific from me, look at this little, these 4 quadrants. If you need wisdom from me, I've got a bit of. If you need encouragement, but let me know because I don't want to just meet your needs the way I think you should meet your needs. It's your life. So you educate me, and then people go, oh, it's a two-way street. They don't feel put down or anything.
Right. So tell me, how do we identify when we have people in our life that they're not going to be nutrient givers, they're not going to really know how to operate in the 4 quadrants, all of that kind of thing? The people that maybe we need to release. What are the signs of being drained by people, and what are the signs of the people who are going to be drainers?
Well, yeah, there are gains. And there are drains. And
I like that.
They'll always be around. And you certainly don't want to be a drain, but you want to be a gain. You want to get gains. And so the way you can really tell is after you had some time with them, do you need to go take a nap?
Right.
There's some people you come away from, you go, I'm energized. I feel close. I feel like I can do things. I can go, win in my marriage and my job and my kids. And there's somebody you go, oh my gosh, where's the bed? I need to pull the blinds down.
Right.
Because what we're finding out, and a lot of this is from neuroscience, because I study pretty much a lot of neuroscience to write this book, is that there are some people who are more either self-absorbed or sort of controlling. that you have to kind of fend yourself off. The self-absorbed people just turns it back to them. When you say, I've had a bad day, they say, well, let me tell you about my day.
Right.
And the controlling person, when you say, I've had a bad day, they go, well, here's the first thing you ought to do, get up earlier. And secondly, I think you ought to start working out more. Well, I had parents in my life, right? So you can tell people if they're not really good for you, this is always a test, about what they do when you're vulnerable. And you're not like trying to have it all together. You just take a little risk with them and say, it's been hard with my kid, or my spouse and I are kind of upside down, or my job is a problem, or whatever. They'll do one of three things, Julie. Either they'll go, boy, the weather here is phenomenal. Can you believe the temperature today? They're telling you, I can't go there. I don't like to go deep, and I'm just not very useful that way. Or they'll give you the 3 steps into happiness. Well, work out more, get up earlier, make sure you have your devotion. They're telling you kind of like, I've got it together. I'm coming at you from a one-down position. But the ones that are going to be the gains, they'll literally stop what they're doing, and they'll move towards you and look at you and go, I had no idea about Sally. Well, that's scary. What happened? How'd that feel? What went on? And you'll go, oh, they're entering my world. Those are the people to cherish and keep around who'll give you the right nutrients.
Great distinguishing marks. And I think doing that little testing is so wise, Dr. John, because sometimes we want to leap in full vulnerability with people that we're not ready for that yet, and they're not ready for it. So to just do a little bit of a test.
Stick your toe in the water.
Right. Because I've had the experience of going too fast, too deep with somebody, and then discovering, oh, whoa. And there are times, too, that I'll have someone that, bless their hearts, but they decide I'm their person early in, and it's way too much information. I do think that willingness to test it and to then build from there is really a beautiful thing. What a great distinguisher. We'll be right back with Dr. John Townsend. I've just got to take a minute and introduce you to our content coordinator, Rebecca Beckett, and our producer, Donna Toti. Rebecca is married to Kyle and is a mom to 2 kiddos. She leads our team for All Mom Does, a fantastic community, website, and social presence for moms in all walks and seasons of life. And Donna, a mom of 2 adult kids and a wife, is this genius of a producer, carefully listening and editing and crafting each and every episode of the Modern Motherhood podcast just for you. It really does take a team to put out this much content every week, both through allmomdoes.com and the podcast. And it takes a team to let others know about the encouragement, inspiration, and tools we hope you found here. I'd like to ask you to take just a minute to make sure you've subscribed to the podcast. It helps you out because it means that the podcast will come to your phone or inbox each week, depending on where you like to get your podcasts. And while you're there subscribing, please leave us a 5-star rating and a review. I'd love to feature your review on an upcoming episode. Thanks so much for being part of the Modern Motherhood podcast team by helping us get out the word about the podcast. Now, what do we do when we find ourselves with somebody who's in our inner circle and we realize this person is really struggling with the idea of us being reciprocal in these 4 quadrants? As a matter of fact, this person is such a drain. I probably need to make a change in relationship. I mean, particularly as people who love God and want to love all people and love our neighbors as ourselves, how do we do that?
Well, yeah, it's really kind of everybody's problem. Like, how do I put the people that I need to have loving relationships with in the right circles in my life? So in the book, I talk about the 7 C's, and it really clarifies all that. There's 7 C's of people in our life. And if you remember this, then it makes it simpler. Number 1, and it's from highest give to lowest give. First C is coaches. Those are the people that give to us and mentor us. They're our mentors, our spiritual guides, our therapists, our business coaches, but people who give to us because either they're trained, maybe we pay them, or maybe it's pro bono, but sort of those guides in our life. The second C is comrades. And comrades is what you were referring to, Julie. It's those mutual people, what I call our life team. I think you can have between 3 and 10 people on your life team. I don't think we have time for any more than that. And life team people are those people who are going through life with you. They've got struggles, you've got struggles, and when you sit down and talk, half the time's about your issues and challenges and wins, half the time's about theirs, unless somebody's got an emergency, then you can kind of take over. But if you talk about a year's worth of meetings and conversations, it's about 50-50. That's mutual. That's a life team. Third is people who are called casuals. And casuals are just kind of your next door neighbor that you want to get to know better and have them over for a barbecue and a glass of wine, or somebody you meet at church that you kind of don't know well, but they're nice people. And they're just kind of that spend some positive time with, but you don't really go deep, but they're just nice casual friends, and they're potential people for life team, could be, maybe not.
Right.
Fourth is your colleagues, and colleagues is if you're at work, you got to have people who are good with team and culture and engagement, and they work together and they win together. You got to have great colleagues. Fifth is care. Now, care means those people in our lives that have nothing to offer that we feel called to. For example, you might be working with a service organization in a developing country, building wells in another country, or providing for micro business, or you might be working volunteering in a domestic violence shelter, or sex trafficking, or mentoring some younger mom who needs mentoring. They're the people that care, that can't pay you and can't do anything. It's just that we're called to give. Is that 4 or 5?
That was 5.
That was 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm taking notes. I am taking notes like a fiend here.
Yeah. The 6th one is the chronics. And the chronics are people, and you use the phrase "bless their heart." Yeah. And in the book, I say those are our bless their heart friends.
Yeah, there it is.
and a chronic is not a care. It's not like a service or a minister. A chronic's a person that they're always screwing up their life. They've got bad relationships. They got bad. They lose all their money. They mess up their marriage, and they don't take care of themselves. And they keep making mistake after mistake after mistake. As a psychologist, I say that they're not mean people, but they have a flat learning curve. You give them all this advice, and you feed them for Starbucks, and you give them this, you got to tell them what to do. And the next week, they didn't do anything you said.
Yep.
They just kind of like it because you're nice to them, but they don't have any intention of changing.
Right.
Flat learning curve. And we tend, especially moms, tend to put way too much time in the chronics, bless their heart.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a black hole.
Yeah, it is.
Doesn't mean you walk away, but you got to limit the time with them. And the 7th and last category is the contaminants. And contaminants, unfortunately, are just bad people. There's foolish people like chronics, bless their heart, but there's bad people and there's wicked people. And you've got to protect your family, and you got to protect your money, and you got to protect your head and everything. You don't give them any time, energy, or anything. You got to stay away from them. So to your original question then, okay, I've got some people that are sort of in my life team circle, but 90% of the conversations about their struggles, maybe they're not on that life team, which is mutual. Maybe there's somebody that's either care or chronic, and then you just change the relationship. Basically, you can't spend as much time as you'd like with them, or as they would like with them. You can't meet with them every Saturday morning at 6:30 instead of going to soccer with your kids. Maybe you spend 3 times a year with them, and you say, here's an 800 number, or here's a great church. But you get them other resources besides yourself, but you got to spend less time because you don't have the time. That's how you do it.
This is genius. I just think this list is genius. And it helps me distinguish, again, I'm someone who's in vocational ministry and spend a lot of time, feel very called to help people and want to do those things. But so often, and I think particularly in spiritual circles, we can get all this super mixed up. We can consider those people that we are in church with and we're in a small group with and we're in a Bible study with and all the things as comrades. And maybe they're not. Maybe they really are more casuals, or somebody that we're called to care for, or somebody who really is a chronic. And to make sure we're being clear about where we're investing our time. Check my math. It feels like to me that it's that number 2, those comrades generally are the place that we're going to find the best nutrients and fueling for our lives. Is that accurate?
My experience is it's 1 and 2.
Right.
Because you can all be comrades, and I think the life team concept is very important, but you got to have a few mentors who have kind of been there. They keep us from making major mistakes and having to redo things again. What I always tell people is when you look at your list of 7, the first thing we go is, gosh, I'm bottom heavy. I don't mean that physically. I mean, I got a lot of contaminants and chronics and care and way too much. And especially people who are vocational ministry, I work with them a lot. And they got way too much of those. And you got to say, okay, I got to do some pruning here. But for me to do the pruning, I got to build up the life team, and I got to get a coach or 2. And then all of a sudden, I make a lot better decisions. And then I get what I call a right size instead of being bottom heavy.
I think that is just spectacular, because you're right. It is very easy to get into a place where we are allowing the urgency of those who are desperately seeking fuel to fill those categories, particularly that 5, 6, and 7 in my life, where I'm allowing it to just zap, and it does become a real issue. Now, Talk to me about those people that, in a sense, we kind of can't get away from, who may be draining us. Let's say it's a work colleague, or let's say that we have someone in an extended family that we do feel a level of being called to care for them, but we haven't distinguished well in the past about not bumping them up to that comrade category. How can we do a good job to create, if you will, those semi-permeable barriers where we are vulnerable and kind and real with people, but we don't necessarily allow them to just push over into those people that we would consider to be comrades?
Yeah, I have 3 keys for that because it comes up a lot. First is we love them. We're called to love. I'm not supposed to hate anybody, right? Love my enemies. So, in other words, what does love mean? Now, it doesn't mean I need to be really vulnerable with them all the time, because some people will take that and use it against me. But I need to be for them. Whenever we see love in the Bible, it just means being for. So I want their best. I don't want their worst, number one. Number two, I've got to not need them, because love and need are different. If I need their acceptance, if I need them to respect me, if I need them to understand me, and they're not a safe or good person, well, I'm drinking from an empty well, and I'm drinking, the wrong stuff. And so I need to get those needs met in other places with people that are for me. So I love them. I try not to need them. I can put my needs in other places. And the third is I said a thing called boundaries. Have you ever heard the word boundaries, Julie?
It's just a little vague term. I don't know.
So, boundaries with all the books that I wrote.
Right.
It's about saying no when I need to and confronting when I need to. And, the Bible says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. So that's what good boundaries are about. Those 3 things will get you out of trouble.
And your boundaries books, I know we're talking about People Fuel today, but all of that series, wildly transformational in my life, because as someone who, one of my degrees is in psych, I'm geared for that. I want to empathize with people. I think that I'm at way higher risk than some for not allowing those good boundaries to be there. And I think particularly for those of us in a faith lane where we want to be open and available, we can have a really hard time with this. Now, you touched on something in that second place of sort of how to manage these things: love, being there for people, not needing people in a way that's unhealthy, and making sure we have boundaries.
Not needing those people.
Not needing those people.
You can't need those people.
Great distinction. So not needing those who fall in one of these categories that is not exactly one of your comrades or your coaches. Talk to us, though, about those of us who have a need to be needed and the kind of, caution lights we need to put up, because sometimes it's not so much that I need the person who maybe is not refueling me. I need to be needed. And I don't realize sometimes the drain that's going on there, not through any fault of that person of their own. I'm the one showing up and allowing this thing. I'm actually not even expecting all that much from them, but I'm still getting drained by something that is also kind of a whirling black hole of a pool. So,
yeah. Well, big problem, especially with giving types of people, which is, any kind of ministry or service or just being a parent. Psychologically speaking, the need to be needed is a projection of my needs onto theirs, because I don't want to see myself as a needy person.
Right.
So I feel needy. I feel like I don't want to be a high demand. I don't want people to be resentful of me because I'm sucking them dry. So what do? I go take care of them. But the problem is when I'm not getting my tank full and I'm helping them, I'm doing it in a way that I'm really meeting my needs through them, which is never good. The Bible says if you don't have because you don't ask. Asking is good. So when I got somebody like that, I just say, look, we got to talk about healthy selfishness here. Your receiving is really awful. And I go to Proverbs chapter 20, verse 5, where it says, a person's heart are deep waters, and a person of understanding draws them out. And I'll say, okay, you're giving to all these countries, and you're giving all these ministries, and you got all these broken people around your life. And it seems like you're helping their deep waters, and you're drawing out their deep waters. You have a responsibility to have somebody draw out yours. And they go, oh, I don't want to need. And I say, I didn't make up the system. Look at God. Look at neurology.
Yeah, exactly.
Get mad at him. But the system is, blessed are those who hunger and thirst, for they shall be filled. I don't like that. Well, go talk to the theology about it. It says that we have a need to need, not a need to be needed. And you got to get over that and stop shaming yourself and say, hey, I've had a bad day. Can we make this lunch about me? Because it really sucked today. And then your kind of people go, you always ask me how I'm doing. I'm so happy you did that. What I always tell people who are the givers is, you have no idea of your friends that are waiting in line to say, I'm so glad that you told me how tough it is for you. I feel honored. I feel respected. I feel like I have something to offer you because you're giving to everybody else. They're waiting in line. So give them that respect.
And, I've found from time to time that when I have been willing to be there and say, I don't have it together today. I just haven't figured it out. I need to go on a rage walk with you. Can we just go on a rage walk around the block? And, and it's amazing how in this interesting way, it can be really encouraging to the healthy people in your life to realize that you trust them and you can, bounce things off of them in a way. So in that strange way, even though I'm often worried about depleting someone else, for those people who are really in my life for the right reasons and to be a comrade or a coach, it actually is life-giving to them. And that irony that when we share as a place of being peer-to-peer can really be a beautiful thing.
And I think that's because connection brings energy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I really feel like somebody's with me, even if they're the one raging. I feel good. I feel like I'm not alone. I get that rage, and I come away feeling kind of boistered up. Connection just brings us energy.
Right. Now, talk to me about this idea that I at times have had my comrades be all sort of in the same place, meaning like maybe we all work together and we all go to church together and we all live in the same neighborhood and our kids are going to the same school. And I found sometimes that can be a cross-contaminant in a way that I didn't intend. Is it good for us to have people from different walks of life fulfill that comrade position so that maybe we can avoid, something that becomes almost a little bit circular sometimes?
Yeah. I think we need to be more heterogeneous in our nutrients than homogeneous for that reason, because not everybody, if you have a very, very tight circle, you can be missing out on some things. The way I tell people to do is if you want to break out of this, I have a very simple technique. It sounds silly, but it works. You go through your contacts app in your Outlook, and everybody's got, 500, 1,000, 10,000, who knows? And just go through it. I've done this myself to see if it worked. And go through and just think, would they be a good comrade for me? And you go through it and you'll say, maybe, oh, that's a nice person. I haven't, and they live in, New Zealand or whatever. Oh, that person, well, they're still in prison. I probably shouldn't have them anymore, and you get through it. It takes a couple of hours, and then you go, gosh, there's like 20 or 25 people that might break me out because I haven't seen them a while, or they're in other parts of the country, or maybe they're just out of my sphere. I think I'll invite them to lunch or whatever. And it helps to break out into a better, more diverse population.
Right. Now, what do we say to that mom who's listening to this and who's thinking, well, this is all sounding lovely and I'm sure I need more relational nutrients, but I feel so isolated right now. I'm home with these kids, or I'm going to the office and coming straight home to take care of kiddos, and maybe we make it to church on occasion, but that's exhausting. I just don't have the margin, or I've been deeply hurt by a friend group. I'm not ready to get back out there, but I don't like feeling isolated. What are healthy ways to begin to search for those kinds of people fuel life-giving relationships when we feel like we've hit a place where we're really stagnant, we're in a desert?
Yeah, I'm a big believer of going to where things already work so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. For example, if a person is a believer in Jesus, a healthy church in driving distance is huge because they have small group stuff and they can find safe small groups. They also have disciplers, mentors, people who can walk you by the hand. A lot of times people will go, I'm not ready for a group like you said because I got burned. Then don't go for a group. Go for one person. Mm-hmm. Just get somebody who's been vetted out. Talk to the church, talk to your friends and say, who's like a good, maybe a sort of older person who's been there and is wise and kind. I just need somebody safe for a while to be nice to me. But start meeting weekly with that person. Well, I don't have time. Well, good. Tell either your spouse, if you're married, take care of the kids. I got to go get my tank full. Or if you're not married, go to your best friend or your sister or your neighbor and just say, look, I just need a little time here. Most people say, yeah, and if you and volunteer to do it for them. But you've got to have some weekly healthy contact, if not with a group, with some mentor to start the ball rolling.
And I believe that is needed no matter your personality style, because I can feel some people saying, well, I'm just not as much a people person. I'm more introverted. But it feels like in context what you're saying, regardless of what your personality style is in this moment, we were built for relationship. We were built for connection.
That's the whole thing about the misnomer about introversion, extroversion. People say, well, I need to be just in my cave watching TV and working in my cubicle, and I'm a computer person. And I don't have to be around people. No. There's a total missing up of what that means. When you look at the scales in introversion, extroversion, it's not about people, or not people. They're both people, but one has to have a certain amount of space of being alone. Not only should they be in a small group and have a life team and have comrades and coaches, They got to have a little space where they're by themselves or they go crazy. In fact, we found out extroverts also need cave time as well. The new research came out. Extroverts need it too. They just need less.
Right.
So let's don't make it people versus non-people. It's how much cave time do you need? But everybody needs people because we're designed for a relationship. The longitudinal studies have come out. If people don't have good, long, solid, deep relationships, they have more psychological problems, financial problems, marriage problems, physical problems, and they die earlier. We're all made for relationships.
Absolutely. Now, talk to me about category 4 colleagues. This is an area that I think sometimes can be so life-giving and sometimes can be very life draining, unfortunately, depending on the people you work with. And let's face it, sometimes you work with people that no matter the amount of corporate coaching and conflict resolution coaching and on and on and on, you're just going to be oil and water. And when you're together all day or you're working on projects all day long, it can be very, very draining. What are some ideas to make sure, obviously making sure we've got great coaches in our life, great comrades in our life, but for those people that sometimes we have to sit shoulder to shoulder with for the majority of our waking hours, how do we make sure that we're staying healthy in the midst of some of those sometimes really difficult relationships?
All right, I'm going to take off my family hat now. I'm going to put on my corporate coaching hat.
Right.
It's a different way to look at this. And the big picture is business needs people working together to be successful. Your boss or boss's boss or owner or the board, or if it's a public company, the stockholders, somebody wants you to be successful. And so if you're having a crazy person that's next to you and they're driving you nuts and maybe they're toxic or critical or irresponsible or whatever, whoever you are accountable to is not getting what they need from you. You got to take that as the big picture is I'm responsible to produce whatever. Either I'm making widgets or I'm doing spreadsheets or whatever. So keep that in mind. This is not about you being a selfish person. You're trying to be productive and helpful to a job. So first thing is always go relational and just have the talks. And I always say, get the person for coffee and say, look, we'll work closely together. Let me know if I ever do anything that sort of puts you off. Like, do I talk too much or too little or am I whatever? But I want to have an open relationship and put yourself on the sword first. And then the person says, sure, I will. Then you say, okay, and do I have the same permission with you? Well, yeah, you do. I mean, if somebody said, yeah, you don't have my permission, that's an HR issue. But most people will say, well, yeah. And then say, good. Do you mind if I bring up something? I got some permission. Yeah. Well, that thing about how tone and mood and culture are so important to us. And sometimes I feel, I like you a lot as a friend and everything, but sometimes sort of there's this negative tone that comes out a lot. And I get negative too. But can we sort of lighten it up sometimes and just have more positivity between us? Well, what do you mean? Well, like yesterday when you went it was like, seriously, Sally, it was 45 minutes about how the world's going to hell in a handbasket and our colleagues are bad and the company's not good. And I just kind of needed a little more something pep from you. Oh, okay, I can change that. So you try to work it out relationally. You make yourself part of the problem too. Now, if a person is what I call there's mild, moderate, and severe in my world. If they're a mild, not very functional person or colleague, that'll fix it. If they're moderate, severe, they'll go, I never do that. You do that. And you go, okay, but you're supposed to give it a couple of tries. And then you sit down and say, I think we need to talk with our boss. And you make it a higher level. You bring the boss and say, look, tell me if I'm doing something wrong. Now you're bringing in the company to say, hey, we're trying to make money off you guys, so this doesn't work. And so start with a relationship, but if you have to bring in HR or your boss, that tends to be the answer. And if you got somebody severe, somebody's got to make a call.
Right.
And I've got to always say this, Julie, there's a caveat. There may be somebody who will always be toxic, that you'll always be next to, who has no interest in being sane. And then you've got to make a decision. Is the net impact of being in that job worth it? Because I like the job's mission and vision and culture and what they're doing, and I can take a crazy person because it nets out positive, or maybe it's time to leave. Right.
And I think absolutely. And I think that I've seen people get stuck where they like the mission of the organization they're part of, but they're having to deal with someone who's very toxic, and that's not going to change. And boy, that moment of having to decide can be a really tender one. And this doesn't just apply to situations that maybe our listeners are thinking, well, I'm not in a corporate situation, but hey, if that PTA mom that you're on the committee with, I mean, if this is part of what you're going through, or that other parent on the soccer team or whatever, those are the kind of situations that we really have to distinguish well, because those are colleagues, right? I mean, we're all about the kids playing soccer together. Okay. And sometimes there isn't that higher level boss or HR to go to. Maybe sometimes, and we've had to make a decision like this a time or two with some of our kids' activities, where we decided, you know what? This environment with the kind of vibe of some of these parents, I know this is the most winning team, blah, 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 but we're not going to do this anymore. And and the great, beautiful news on the other side of any job or soccer team or whatever the thing may be, did you know there are other amazing jobs and organizations and soccer teams out there? There really are. And so to not be afraid to make those changes when we need to.
Absolutely.
And I think sometimes we get fearful about that. But I think that when we make those leaps, it can be really powerful for us to experience that. Now, how can I do the little self-check to make sure that I'm not the person draining those that I consider comrades? What are the signals my comrades will give me for me to understand that maybe I've taken a little too long looking for a little too much empathy?
It's really easy. Don't double check yourself. All you got to do is to say from time to time, by the way, am I like hijacking this conversation? You know, has it been about me the last 3 or 4 times? And they'll go, well, yeah, but you did have this stuff going on with the money or your kid's health, and that's fine. Or they'll go, yeah, it'd be nice if we kind of made it about me a little bit. Yeah. but if you've got the right comrades and you say, just, I want to be accountable. I want to be giving to you as much as I'm getting from you because I get a lot from you. They'll go, yeah. And it'll just self-correct. So just ask them. When I was writing the book, I called my people and my comrades and I said, how am I doing? And some of them said, yeah, it's halfway. And some of them said, yeah, you kind of make it back yourself too much. It was really helpful.
Right. And I'm so glad that you have this designation of coaches, because I think sometimes we expect our comrades to be our counselors and our therapists. And that is not, yes, they're there for us, but that is not their role. And there are times that I think maybe I've disappointed someone who considered me a comrade because we were on round 275 of, what felt like me doing therapy for them.
And you weren't being paid either.
Right, exactly. I don't even think they were paying for my Starbucks now that I think about it. So now that you point that out, I might have to go on a rage walk. So how can we know when it's time to engage somebody at a professional level as a coach? Because sometimes we can have those mentors through our spiritual communities, and we understand that's the relationship we've got with them. But where is that really important transition to realize it may be time for me to make an investment in getting appropriately refueled in those nutrients in my life so I can be a solid comrade, a solid casual, a solid colleague, and I can care for those well? How do I make that transition to understand it's time to pay up? It's time to get me a coach.
Or somebody at a church who's been there and kind of is giving back on a pro bono level, or somebody who's a good mentor person. But you always tell that question by the fruit. Good tree makes good fruit, bad tree makes bad fruit. And if you find that having good comrades, still there's issues, like deeper issues. Like maybe I've got an emotional struggle and I got some hurt. Well, the comrades can't fix that if it's a clinical issue. Or maybe I've got a life thing in business that I need somebody, and my comrades just don't have that technical expertise. Or maybe I've got a health thing, or maybe a family thing where how do I get all my kids healthy and move in the same direction? Maybe I need a family coach. So when the life team isn't enough, the comrades, you got to say, I need special Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours expertise, and that'll change everything.
That's awesome. Well, I'm so excited for our listeners to get their hands on this book, People Fuel, How Energy from Relationships Transforms Life, Love, and Leadership. I think I've taken about 4 pages of notes as we have talked today, Dr. John Townsend. And you have a relational card that helps break down these 4 quadrants. And we're going to make sure we get that to the show notes for people so that they can see how to really assess where they are in showing up with these nutrients for those people that they want to invest in their lives, and also those people that they are to be comrades with, that we're supposed to be co-investing in each other's lives.
Keep it in your purse, put it on your smartphone, but everybody needs to have a checkup. Am I down on my calcium? I got to find out, because my doctor has all my stuff on my app, so I know how I'm doing all the time with my doctor. Well, I needed something to know, am I in deficit on advice right now? Or am I in deficit on somebody thinking I'm not a jerk? I got to have the card so I know how I'm doing. So
it's going to be excellent. I'm very excited for listeners to get hold of that. Well, Dr. John Townsend, what an honor to get to speak with you. Thanks so much for all the fuel that you put into us through this conversation and through helping us understand how to really engage healthy relationships. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Julie.
Go to drtownsend.com for great resources. That's drtownsend.com for great resources and more from Dr. John Townsend. And then head over to allmomdoes.com and allmomdoes on the socials. You're going to find a nutrient-rich community, just like Dr. John and I have been talking about, a nutrient-rich community of women navigating life right alongside you. And come and see me on the socials at Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I'm Julie Lyles Carr in all the places. Show notes, we've got show notes put together by our amazing content coordinator, Rebecca Beckett, where you'll find links, extra content, and more. Donna Tody is our Wonder Woman producer, and she and Rebecca are the team that gets the podcast out to you each and every week. So make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast and leave us a shiny 5-star rating and review. It really does help others find the great content you get here each week. Join me next time for the Modern Motherhood Podcast.